What does it look like when the man who built a multi-billion-dollar entertainment empire decides to personally invest not just money, but thought, intention, and care into one artist? Bang Si-hyuk, the founder of HYBE, has never been the type to make grand public gestures, but behind closed doors, the way he treated Jungkook tells a story that most fans have never fully heard. A former HYBE staff member recently pulled back the curtain on 7 specific gifts that Bang PD personally gave to the youngest member of BTS. And these weren't random corporate bonuses or standard company perks. Each one was deliberate, each one carried weight, and each one revealed something about how Bang Si-hyuk saw Jungkook's future long before the rest of the world caught up. From a gift that turned a teenage trainee into a millionaire on paper, to a quiet, personal gesture made just hours before Jungkook walked through military gates, these 7 moments paint a picture of a relationship that goes far deeper than CEO and idol. So here's the real question. Why did Bang Si-hyuk go this far for Jungkook, and what did he see in that 15-year-old kid from Busan that nobody else did?
Number 7. The camera that started everything. Most people know Jungkook as a singer, a dancer, a performer who could command a stadium of 80,000 people before he turned 22. But what a lot of fans don't realize is that there's an entire creative side of him that almost never existed, and it took one very specific gift from Bang Si-hyuk to unlock it. According to a former HYBE staff member who worked closely with the creative development team during BTS's early years, Bang PD personally handed Jungkook a high-end professional camera sometime around 2016, not as a birthday present, not as a company perk, but as a deliberate, calculated investment in something he noticed Jungkook was quietly gravitating toward. See, inside the walls of Big Hit Entertainment, it wasn't a secret that Jungkook had started picking up cameras during overseas schedules, filming random behind-the-scenes moments on his phone, experimenting with angles, editing clips late at night in the dorm when the other members were already asleep. He wasn't posting any of it, he wasn't showing it off. He was just doing it because something about the process of capturing moments and stitching them together into a visual story fascinated him on a level that went beyond casual curiosity. And Bang Si-hyuk, who had a reputation inside the company for watching his artists more carefully than anyone realized, picked up on it. He didn't make it a big announcement, he didn't hold a meeting, he simply showed up one day with a camera, a proper one, professional grade, the kind that film students would save up months to afford, and gave it directly to Jungkook with a few words that the staff member remembers is something close to, "If you're going to do it right." That single moment is widely believed within HYBE's inner circles to be the spark that led to what the world would eventually come to know as GCF, Golden Closet Films. For those unfamiliar, GCF became Jungkook's personal creative project, a series of beautifully shot and edited travel films that he produced, directed, filmed, and scored entirely by himself, uploading them to BTS's official YouTube channel, where they collectively amassed tens of millions of views. GCF Tokyo, GCF in Saipan, GCF in Helsinki, each one showcasing a level of cinematic sensibility that genuinely surprised people in the professional film community. These weren't idol vlogs, they weren't shaky phone recordings with a filter on top. They were real films, with intentional color grading, thoughtful pacing, carefully chosen soundtracks, and a visual language that told you this was someone who genuinely understood the emotional architecture of filmmaking. And it all traced back to that camera. What makes this gift significant isn't the price tag, although a professional-grade camera in 2016 wasn't cheap by any standard. It's the philosophy behind it. Bang Si-hyuk had built Big Hit Entertainment on a fundamentally different model than the traditional K-pop agencies of that era. While companies like SM and YG were known for keeping their idols inside tightly controlled creative boxes, sing what we tell you, dance what we choreograph, wear what we style, Bang PD operated on a principle that giving artists creative freedom wasn't a risk, it was a multiplier. He believed that if you gave talented people the tools and the permission to explore, they would inevitably create things that no boardroom could have planned. And Jungkook was the perfect test case for that theory. Here was a kid who joined Big Hit Entertainment at 13 years old, leaving his family in Busan to train in Seoul with 6 older guys he barely knew, in a company that was so financially unstable at the time that there were genuine questions about whether they'd even survive long enough to debut. Jungkook had been scouted after auditioning for a Korean talent show, and multiple agencies had offered him a spot, but he chose Big Hit, reportedly because he was impressed by RM's charisma and, according to some accounts, because something about the atmosphere of the small company felt right to him.
But choosing the right company and being nurtured by the right mentor are two different things. A lot of talented kids walk into entertainment agencies every year and get molded into products rather than developed into artists. Bang Si-hyuk took a different approach with Jungkook specifically because he recognized early on that Jungkook's talent wasn't limited to one category. The kid could sing, he could dance, he could pick up choreography faster than trainees who'd been dancing for years. He had the kind of natural physical coordination that made athletic movements look effortless. And as he grew older, it became clear that his creative instincts extended well beyond performance, into visual storytelling, into music production, into art and design. The camera was Bang PD's way of saying, "I see that, and I'm not going to let it go undeveloped." The former staff member described it as one of the quieter but more revealing moments they witnessed during their time at the company, because it showed how Bang Si-hyuk's leadership style worked on a personal level, not just a corporate one. He wasn't managing an idol, he was cultivating a creator. And the results speak for themselves. GCF didn't just become a fan-favorite series, it became part of Jungkook's identity, a creative outlet that kept him grounded during the most intense years of BTS's global explosion, a space where he could express himself without the pressure of commercial expectations or chart performance. It was purely his. And it started with a gift that cost far less than what Bang PD would later give him, but arguably meant far more. There's another layer to this that often gets overlooked. When Jungkook's GCF videos started gaining serious attention, several professional filmmakers and content creators publicly praised the work, noting that his instinct for visual composition was unusually refined for someone without formal training. One Korean film critic even commented that GCF in Tokyo had a visual rhythm that reminded him of early Wong Kar-wai, a comparison that, whether you agree with it or not, tells you something about the level at which people were receiving Jungkook's work. None of that happens without the initial push. None of that happens if Bang Si-hyuk looks at a teenage idol experimenting with his phone camera and thinks, that's not his lane. Instead, he looked at it and thought, that could be something. And he was right. The camera wasn't just a gift, it was permission. Permission to be more than what the industry expected him to be, more than a vocalist, more than a performer, more than the golden maknae of the world's biggest boy band. It was Bang PD's way of telling Jungkook, without a long speech or a formal sit-down, that his curiosity was valid, that his instincts were worth following, and that the company he'd chosen at 13 years old wasn't going to be the kind of place that clipped his wings. That's the thing about the right gift at the right time. It doesn't just give you something to hold, it gives you a direction to walk in. And Jungkook walked. But if you think a camera is a generous gift, wait until you hear what Bang PD did next, because number 6 involves something that didn't just support Jungkook's creativity, it gave him an entire world to create in.
Number 6, a studio with his name on it. In the K-pop industry, studio space is currency. It's not just a room with soundproofing and a mixing board, it's a statement of status, a declaration from the company that you matter enough to have your own creative territory within the building. At the major agencies, dedicated personal studios are typically reserved for producers, senior songwriters, and the rare elite artist who's earned enough leverage to demand one. Trainees don't get them, junior idols don't get them, and in most cases, even successful group members share communal recording rooms that they book by the hour like students reserving a library cubicle.
So when Bang Si-hyuk personally arranged for Jungkook to have his own private studio space inside the big hit building, a fully equipped room that Jungkook would eventually refer to as his golden closet, it sent a quiet but unmistakable signal through the company about how the founder viewed the youngest member of BTS. According to the former staff member, this wasn't a standard allocation that every artist received. It was a specific decision made by Bang PD after observing how Jungkook's creative habits were evolving beyond what a shared recording booth could accommodate. By the mid to late 2010s, Jungkook wasn't just showing up to record his assigned vocal parts and leaving. He was staying late, experimenting with production software, layering tracks, editing his GCF videos, teaching himself audio mixing techniques by watching tutorials and reverse engineering songs he admired. The kid was essentially building a second education inside the company walls, and he was doing it on borrowed time in borrowed rooms, always having to pack up and move when someone else had the space booked. Bang Si-hyuk recognized the bottleneck. More importantly, he recognized what it would cost, not in money, but in creative momentum, if Jungkook kept hitting that wall. So he made the call. He gave Jungkook a room. Not a massive, flashy producer's suite like the ones you see in behind-the-scenes tours of American record labels, but a dedicated private space fitted with professional-grade equipment, monitors, microphones, an audio interface, production software, the works. A space where Jungkook could walk in at any hour, close the door, and create without asking permission, without checking a schedule, without worrying about someone knocking to tell him his time was up. The name Golden Closet became iconic in the BTS fandom, but what most fans don't realize is the origin of that name tells you everything about Jungkook's personality, and, by extension, about why Bang PD's approach to nurturing him was so effective. Jungkook didn't call it a studio, he didn't give it some grandiose title, he called it a closet. Partly because the room itself wasn't enormous, and partly because Jungkook has never been the type to inflate his own importance. He's the member who, even after selling out stadiums worldwide, still referred to himself as someone who was still learning. The golden part came from his well-known nickname, the Golden Maknae, a title he earned because of his seemingly supernatural ability to excel at virtually everything he tried: singing, dancing, drawing, sports, video games, cooking, filming. So the Golden Closet was, in the most Jungkook way possible, a humble name for a space that would produce some genuinely remarkable work. And the work that came out of that room wasn't trivial. Jungkook used the Golden Closet to produce cover songs that became cultural events in their own right. His cover of Lauve's Never Not wasn't just a casual recording, it was a fully produced, emotionally textured reinterpretation that Lauve himself publicly praised, calling it one of the best covers he'd ever heard of his own song. His rendition of Charlie Puth's We Don't Talk Anymore accumulated millions of streams and introduced BTS's audience to a softer, more vulnerable vocal style that would later influence the direction of his solo work. Each of these tracks was conceived, recorded, mixed, and released from that small room that Bang PD had quietly set aside for him. The staff member emphasized that what made this gift different from, say, the camera was the level of institutional commitment it represented. A camera is a one-time purchase. A studio is ongoing. It requires maintenance, equipment upgrades, soundproofing adjustments, software licenses. It takes up physical space in a building where square footage is directly tied to the company's operating costs. By giving Jungkook that room, Bang Si-hyuk wasn't just making a nice gesture. He was making a business decision, one that said this artist's creative development is worth a permanent line item in our budget. And the timing of it matters too. This wasn't 2020 when BTS was the biggest act on the planet and every decision about them was backed by billions in revenue.
This was during a period when Big Hit was still a mid-sized company, still operating with the kind of financial discipline that comes from having nearly gone bankrupt in the early 2010s.
Every resource allocation was scrutinized, every expense had to justify itself. And yet, Bang PD looked at the trajectory of a young artist who was teaching himself to produce music and edit films in his spare time and decided that the return on investment wasn't even a question. There's a broader context here that makes this even more significant. In the traditional K-pop model, the relationship between company and artist is fundamentally transactional. The company invests in training, styling, promotion, and production. The artist performs, generates revenue, and fulfills their contract. Creative autonomy, when it exists at all, is usually granted reluctantly and only after years of proven commercial success. Bang Si-hyuk flipped that script with BTS from the very beginning, but the Golden Closet is one of the clearest physical manifestations of that philosophy. He didn't wait for Jungkook to prove that his solo creative output could generate profit before giving him the space to create. He gave him the space first and trusted that the output would follow. That's a fundamentally different approach to artist development, and it's one of the reasons why BTS's creative identity feels so different from groups that came out of the more rigid agency systems. Each member was given room, literally and figuratively, to develop their own artistic voice, and Jungkook's voice, the one that emerged from late nights in the Golden Closet, became one of the most distinctive in the entire group. The former staff member also noted something that rarely makes it into fan discussions. Bang PD didn't just give Jungkook the room and walk away. He periodically checked in on what Jungkook was working on, not in a supervisory capacity, but with genuine curiosity. He'd listen to rough mixes, offer feedback when asked, and occasionally suggest technical approaches that Jungkook hadn't considered. It was mentorship in its purest form, not controlling, not directive, just present, available. The kind of guidance that doesn't feel like guidance until you look back years later and realize how much it shaped you. And here's the thing that makes the Golden Closet more than just a nice studio perk. It became the foundation for Jungkook's entire solo identity. When he eventually released his solo album Golden in November 2023, the title itself was a direct callback to the Golden Maknae legacy, and the creative confidence he displayed on that album, the willingness to experiment across genres, to blend pop with Latin influences, to push his vocal into registers and styles that K-pop rarely explores, all of that confidence was built in a small room that Bang Si-hyuk gave him years earlier, when the rest of the industry would have told a young idol to stay in his lane and let the producers handle the music. The studio wasn't just four walls and equipment, it was an incubator. It was where Jungkook stopped being purely an interpreter of other people's creative visions and started becoming an architect of his own. And it was a gift that kept compounding, year after year, track after track, until the kid who once sat in a borrowed room watching YouTube tutorials was standing on a global stage performing songs that carried his own creative fingerprints. But as significant as a personal studio is, the next gift on this list operates on an entirely different level, because number 5 isn't about tools or spaces. It's about something Bang Si-hyuk gave Jungkook that money genuinely cannot buy.
Number 5. The American Dance Expedition. Long before BTS ever stepped foot on an American awards show stage or headlined sold-out stadium tours across North America, a 15-year-old Jungkook was put on a plane to Los Angeles with a single mission: to transform from a timid, introverted kid who could barely make eye contact into a world-class performer who could command the attention of millions. In the summer of 2012, Big Hit Entertainment was far from the global financial juggernaut it is today. It was a tiny, struggling record label operating out of a modest office building in Seoul, managing mounting debts and placing everything on the line to launch a new hip-hop boy group. Resources were scarce, budgets were paper-thin, and every single one spent had to be accounted for with extreme precision. Yet, despite these brutal financial constraints, founder Bang Si-hyuk made a decision that shocked many inside the small company. He decided to fund a solo, month-long overseas training program in California exclusively for his youngest trainee, Jungkook.
At the time, internal performance evaluations revealed a glaring problem with the quiet 15-year-old from Busan. While Jungkook possessed a remarkably clear vocal tone and a natural sense of rhythm, he was so painfully shy that whenever staff members asked him to sing or dance during monthly evaluations, he would freeze up, break into tears, or struggle to express any emotion through his body movement. Bang PD looked at the evaluation reports and realized that standard Korean academy training wasn't going to break through those emotional walls. If Jungkook was going to become the center and main vocalist of BTS, he needed to experience dance not as a rigid set of instructions, but as an authentic, visceral form of self-expression. So, Bang PD personally arranged for Jungkook to travel to Los Angeles alongside big-hit choreographers Movement Lifestyle Connections, enrolling him at the world-famous Movement Lifestyle Studio, where top-tier urban dance choreographers like Lando Wilkins, Keon Madrid, and Kyle Hanagami taught. For 30 intense days, the young teenager was plunged into the heart of Southern California's street dance culture, taking multiple high-intensity classes a day, learning complex body isolations, popping, locking, floor work, and urban hip-hop grooves alongside seasoned adult dancers from across the globe. Jungkook documented this transformative period in a heartfelt post on Big Hit's pre-debut blog titled An Ordinary Trainee's Dance Training Trip to America, detailing how he bought waffle ice cream, walked the streets of LA, learned how to express raw attitude through movement, and realized just how vast the artistic world really was beyond Seoul. The impact of that trip was so profound that it nearly derailed BTS before they even debuted. When Jungkook returned to Korea, his passion for dance had ignited to such a degree that he candidly told Bang Si-hyuk and his fellow trainees that he wanted to abandon his dream of becoming a singer altogether to pursue a career as a professional dancer in America. It took a concerted effort from the older members, particularly Jimin, who famously bought him ice cream and talked to him late into the night, and a grounded, encouraging sit-down conversation with Bang PD himself to convince the young prodigy that he didn't have to choose between singing and dancing, but could instead bring that fierce American dance foundation into BTS to make the group truly unbeatable. Bang PD's high-stakes financial and personal gamble paid off beyond anyone's wildest expectations. When BTS debuted in 2013 with tracks like No More Dream and We Are Bulletproof Part 2, it was Jungkook's explosive physical power, fluid body control, and newly forged stage presence that gave the group's choreography its signature sharp, relentless edge. By sending a shy teenager across the Pacific when the company could barely afford it, Bang PD didn't just give Jungkook a temporary educational trip, he gifted him the artistic confidence and global mindset that would eventually define his identity as one of the greatest stage performers of his generation. But while an overseas trip can reshape an artist's skills, what happens when a CEO hands over actual corporate power? That brings us directly to number 4, a gesture so massive it transformed a group of artists into multi-millionaire power brokers.
Number 4, the multi-million-dollar equity partnership. In the high-stakes realm of global entertainment, CEOs and music executives routinely hand out expensive watches, luxury cars, or celebratory dinners to their top-performing talent when albums break records or tours sell out worldwide. But in August 2020, on the eve of Big Hit Entertainment's historic initial public offering on the Kospi Stock Exchange, Bang Si-hyuk executed a financial gesture that shattered every existing protocol in the South Korean music industry. Rather than offering a standard performance bonus or renewing contracts under conventional corporate terms, Bang PD officially transferred a staggering 478,695 common shares of company stock directly from his personal holdings to the 7 members of BTS, granting exactly 68,385 shares to each member, including the group's youngest member, Jungkook.
To understand the monumental weight of this move, one has to look at the traditional landscape of K-pop, where music agencies historically operated under rigid, asymmetrical power structures that treated idols as replaceable assets, tightly controlling their revenue streams, while agency executives retained 100% of the company's equity and long-term capital gains. For decades, even the most successful idols generated hundreds of millions of dollars for parent companies, while receiving standard royalty cuts, remaining completely excluded from the actual corporate ownership of the entities they built with their sweat and talent. Bang Si-hyuk systematically dismantled that legacy with a single filing with the Korean Financial Services Commission, declaring that the transfer of equity was specifically designed to solidify a long-term strategic partnership between the company and its core artists, aligning their mutual growth and granting them genuine voting rights and capital ownership. When Big Hit Entertainment officially went public in October 2020 under what would soon become HYBE Corporation, those 68,385 shares propelled 23-year-old Jungkook directly onto the ranks of the country's wealthiest young stock owners, with his personal shareholding valuation instantly surging to tens of millions of dollars on the very first day of trading. For Jungkook, who had walked into Big Hit at 13 years old when the agency was struggling to pay monthly office rent and could barely afford basic promotional budgets, holding significant equity in a multi-billion-dollar corporate empire wasn't just a testament to massive financial wealth, it represented an unprecedented shift in artist dignity and agency respect. Former staff members who witnessed the internal atmosphere during the IPO preparation noted that Bang Si-hyuk's decision stemmed from a deep-seated belief that BTS was not merely a product created by Big Hit, but the co-architects of the entire enterprise, without whom HYBE simply would not exist. By placing real ownership in Jungkook's hands, Bang PD ensured that every time HYBE expanded its global footprint, acquiring American management companies, launching tech platforms like Weverse, or investing in game development, Jungkook was not just a worker generating content for the company, but a primary stakeholder, sharing directly in every cent of corporate appreciation. This financial autonomy gave Jungkook a rare level of psychological peace and creative security early in his career, allowing him to approach his music, his solo endeavors, and his choices without the desperate financial pressure that often forces young artists into compromised artistic decisions or predatory commercial deals. Bang Si-hyuk didn't just pay Jungkook for his past work, he bound their futures together as equal partners in a business that redefined global pop culture, proving that true mentorship means sharing the throne rather than just hiring someone to perform in front of it. Yet, as life-changing as multi-million-dollar corporate stock may be on paper, Bang Si-hyuk understood that real loyalty isn't forged in financial markets alone. It's tested in moments of extreme personal vulnerability. Which brings us to number 3, a quiet gesture made behind closed doors when Jungkook faced one of the most nerve-wracking milestones of his life.
Number 3, the Military Enlistment Care Package, Jungkook. On December 12, 2023, under the gray, freezing winter skies of Yongsan in Gyeonggi Province, one of the coldest regions in South Korea, 26-year-old Jungkook prepared to undergo one of the most intense, humbling transitions any Korean male can experience, shaving his head and stepping through the gates of the 5th Infantry Division Recruit Training Center for mandatory active duty military service. At that precise moment in time, Jungkook was arguably the biggest pop star on Earth, fresh off the record-breaking global success of his debut solo album, Golden, and his Billboard-topping single 7, which had racked up billions of streams and solidified his standing as a global icon capable of filling stadiums on any continent. In the traditional entertainment industry, when a top-earning artist steps away for nearly 2 years of forced hiatus, corporate executives usually view the event through the cold lens of lost revenue and strategic inconvenience, sending generic legal statements or sending mid-level managers to handle logistics while staying far away from the front lines. But Bang Si-hyuk took a completely different approach, personally traveling to the remote military base near the North Korean border to stand side by side with Jungkook and his fellow members on that emotional morning. Former HYBE staff members who coordinated the enlistment logistics revealed that Bang PD didn't show up empty-handed or just to take formal promotional photos. He arrived carrying personally assembled care packages specifically curated to help Jungkook survive the punishing sub-zero temperatures of winter basic training. Knowing that the severe Korean winter in Yongkyeon regularly drops below -15 degrees Celsius with blistering Arctic winds, Bang Si-hyuk had hand-picked heavy-duty medical-grade moisturizers and barrier creams to prevent severe windburn and skin cracking during grueling outdoor drills. Specialized high-intensity thermal hot packs designed for long tactical marches, durable thermal underlayers, and deeply personal written words of encouragement reminding Jungkook to prioritize his physical safety and mental resilience above all else. Photos and behind-the-scenes footage released later showed Bang Si-hyuk wrapping his arms around Jungkook in a warm, protective embrace, a candid visual moment that looked far more like a father sending his youngest son off to harsh military duty than a billionaire chairman saying goodbye to his company's top financial asset. This fatherly instinct was not an isolated gesture. Staff members recalled that as far back as 2018, when BTS was facing intense public debates and political discussions regarding potential military exemptions, Bang Si-hyuk had held private sit-down talks with Jungkook to discuss his long-term life vision, reassuring him that military service would not be the end of his career, but rather a vital, maturing chapter that would grant him life experience, personal dignity, and a healthy reset away from the relentless microscope of international fame. By personally showing up at the barracks with practical, thoughtful supplies and offering an unshakable shoulder to lean on, Bang Si-hyuk demonstrated that his bond with Jungkook went infinitely deeper than music contracts, record sales, or corporate earnings reports. He proved that even when the glamorous stage lights were turned off and the designer clothes were replaced by standard-issue military fatigues, Jungkook was still the young kid from Busan whom Bang PD had promised to protect and guide through every stage of life. That quiet care package delivered in the freezing mud of Yongkyeon was a stark reminder that true mentorship isn't built on public fanfare, but on showing up when the temperature drops and the real world sets in. But as deeply touching as that military farewell was, the next gift on our list takes us back to the very beginning, to a critical decision Bang Si-hyuk made when Jungkook was just an unknown teenager, a choice that fundamentally altered the trajectory of pop music history, which brings us straight to number 2. Number 2, the global creative autonomy mandate, Jungkook. When an artist reaches the absolute pinnacle of group success, transitioning into a solo career is one of the most perilous moves they can make. History is littered with boy band members whose individual albums failed because their record labels forced them into rigid corporate formulas, restricted their artistic instincts, or refused to invest the necessary resources to break them on the international stage. In 2023, as BTS entered its official Chapter 2 phase allowing members to pursue individual projects before military enlistment, the entire music industry was watching to see how Big Hit and HYBE would handle the solo debut of the group's youngest member, Jungkook. The commercial stakes were astronomically high, and traditional K-pop executives would have played it safe, demanding a Korean-language album, sticking to proven domestic pop formulas, using in-house agency producers to maximize company royalty retention, and keeping tight corporate control over every single artistic decision. Instead, Bang Si-hyuk handed Jungkook what former HYBE staff members describe as the ultimate industry gift, complete creative autonomy backed by unlimited international production resources and absolute genre freedom. Bang Si-hyuk didn't just give his blessing. He personally mobilized his extensive network across the global music industry, connecting Jungkook with Grammy-winning international super-producers like Andrew Watt, Circuit, John Bellion, and Blood Pop, opening up elite recording studios in Los Angeles and London. When Jungkook expressed a desire to record an album sung entirely in English, a bold, controversial move for a South Korean artist that raised eyebrows among traditionalists in the Korean music industry, Bang Si-hyuk fiercely championed the decision both internally and publicly. Bang PD publicly stated that Jungkook should not be constrained by the geographical or linguistic boundaries of K-pop, asserting that Jungkook possessed the vocal versatility star power, and pop sensibility to stand on the exact same global stage as legendary Western pop icons like Justin Bieber, Usher, or Michael Jackson. Throughout the production of the album Golden, Bang Si-hyuk flew to Los Angeles to attend studio sessions with Andrew Watt and Jungkook, serving not as a heavy-handed corporate supervisor demanding changes, but as a trusted executive sounding board who let Jungkook make every final call on track selections, vocal arrangements, and featured collaborations with international stars like Latto, Jack Harlow, and Major Lazer. When internal debates arose over whether the explicit version of Seven was too risky for Jungkook's clean image, Bang PD trusted Jungkook's artistic judgment completely, allowing the young star to embrace a mature, sophisticated sound that reflected his actual age and personal evolution rather than an artificial adolescent image. That gift of absolute artistic trust paid off in historic fashion. Golden became a global juggernaut, shattering streaming records worldwide, making Jungkook the first Asian solo artist in history to simultaneously top the Billboard Global 200 and Global XL US charts for multiple weeks, and proving beyond a shadow of a doubt that Bang Si-hyuk's belief in his total freedom was spot on. By refusing to shackle Jungkook to traditional K-pop conventions, Bang PD gave him the freedom to redefine what a global pop star from Asia could look and sound like on the world stage. But as legendary as the golden era became, there is still one gift that stands above all others. A moment so deeply personal, so emotionally overwhelming, and so foundational to Jungkook's entire existence in BTS that it sits at the absolute peak of our list as number 1. Number 1. The fatherly covenant of unconditional belief, Jungkook. In 2011, a shy 14-year-old boy from Busan named Jeon Jungkook traveled to Daegu to audition for the popular Korean talent show Superstar K3. Although he didn't make it to the main televised rounds of the competition, his raw charisma, pitch-perfect natural vocals, and captivating aura immediately triggered an unprecedented bidding war among talent scouts waiting outside the audition rooms. 7 different South Korean entertainment agencies handed him business cards that day, including wealthy, established industry giants like HYBE Entertainment, HYBE, Starship, and FNC, companies that already boasted massive corporate budgets, state-of-the-art training facilities, famous active idol groups, and guaranteed television broadcast connections. By all conventional logic, any young aspiring artist would have eagerly signed with one of those major agencies to guarantee a smoother, safer path to stardom. Yet, when Jungkook walked into the humble, debt-ridden basement offices of Big Hit Entertainment, a tiny, struggling agency that couldn't even afford proper air conditioning in its practice rooms, he made a choice that stunned his parents and changed pop music history forever. While Jungkook has famously recounted being mesmerized after watching future group leader RM rap in the practice room, former HYBE staff members reveal that the decisive factor behind Jungkook's choice was the extraordinary personal promise Bang Si-hyuk made to the boy and his parents. In an industry notorious for treating young trainees like expendable commodities to be replaced at the first sign of struggle, Bang Si-hyuk sat down with Jungkook's mother and father and offered them something no other agency CEO could put into a legal contract, a fatherly covenant. Bang PD assured them that Big Hit would not just train their son to sing and dance. They would take full responsibility for his schooling, his physical health, his character development, and his emotional well-being, raising him in a tight-knit family atmosphere alongside the older members rather than subjecting him to the cutthroat, corporate isolation typical of larger agencies. During those brutal early trainee years, when a young, homesick Jungkook cried in the dorms missing his family in Busan and nearly quit training due to overwhelming self-doubt, Bang Si-hyuk didn't replace him with another eager applicant from the waiting list. Instead, Bang PD personally checked on his progress, took him out for meals, famously taking a young Jungkook out for duck meat dinners and making sure he had proper pocket money, and gave him the psychological safety to grow at his own pace. Bang Si-hyuk recognized before anyone else that raw talent in a 14-year-old is incredibly fragile, and that what Jungkook needed most wasn't flashy corporate promises or instant stardom, but an unshakable foundation of genuine trust, patience, and fatherly love. That foundational gift of belief, offered to an unknown kid in a tiny basement room when Big Hit was on the verge of bankruptcy, became the bedrock upon which the entire BTS global phenomenon was eventually built. Every stadium sold out, every Billboard record broken, every global award won, and every historic achievement that Jungkook would go on to accomplish in the years that followed can be traced back to that singular moment when Bang Si-hyuk looked at a shy kid from Busan and decided to give him a home, a vision, and a legacy that will echo through pop culture history forever.